You're doing 70 on the highway, half a car length too close to a gravel truck, and you hear it. That sharp little tick, like somebody snapped a knuckle against the glass. You lean forward at the next red light, and there it is. A tiny white star, maybe the size of a pea, sitting in your windshield right where you can't stop looking at it. And here's what most people do next. Nothing. They tell themselves it's small, it's cosmetic, they'll deal with it later. And later is exactly when that pea-sized star turns into a crack crawling across the glass like a river on a map, and a $15 fix becomes a four-figure bill. I've fixed more windshield chips than I can honestly count, and I've watched even more of them get ignored until the glass was garbage. So I'll be straight with you right up front. That chip is not cosmetic. It is live damage, it is under stress, and it is quietly racing the weather. But here's the good news, and it's genuinely good. Catching it early is one of the cheapest, easiest wins left in modern car ownership. $15 and half an hour in your driveway, done carefully, can save you the price of an entire windshield. By the end of this, you'll know how to read the damage the way a glass tech reads it, how the resin repair actually works down at the level of the glass itself, how to do it yourself without making things worse, when it's smarter to pay a professional the $60, and when the glass truly has to go. And stay for the part about insurance, because there's a quirk in how glass claims work that most drivers never use. And it's the rare situation where the insurance company genuinely wants the same outcome you do. Stick around for that one, because it might cost you nothing at all. Before we touch a repair kit, you need to understand what a windshield actually is, because it is not a sheet of glass. If it were a sheet of glass, that gravel truck would have put a rock through your forehead. A windshield is a sandwich. 2 layers of glass, and between them, a thin sheet of clear plastic. The engineers call it polyvinyl butyrol. Forget the name. It's a tough, slightly stretchy plastic film, and the 2 sheets of glass are bonded to it under heat and pressure until the whole thing acts like one piece. That plastic layer is why a windshield takes a hit and stars instead of shattering, and why in a crash, the broken glass mostly stays in one blanket instead of flying around the cabin. The old safety engineers figured this out generations ago, and it remains one of the quietly brilliant ideas in the whole car. Now here's the part that matters for your chip. When a rock hits the outer layer, it crushes a tiny cone of glass at the impact point and sends micro cracks out from it. Those cracks are almost never done growing. Glass fails from the tip of a crack because all the stress in the surrounding glass funnels down to that one microscopic point. Think of tearing a plastic bag. Pulling on the flat bag is hard. Put the tiniest nick in the edge and it rips with no effort because the nick concentrates the force. Your chip is that nick, and your windshield lives a hard life. The body of the car flexes over every pothole. The glass expands in the afternoon sun and shrinks overnight. You blast the defroster onto frozen glass on a cold morning, and the inner surface gets hot while the outer surface is still at freezing, and the 2 surfaces fight each other. Every one of those cycles pries at the tip of that crack, a little at a time, until one cold snap or one hard bump sends it running. That's why a chip can sit quietly for 3 weeks and then grow 6 inches in an afternoon. It was never sleeping. It was waiting. So the first real skill is reading the damage, because not every chip is the same and not every chip can be saved. Glass techs sort them into a few families. A bullseye is the classic one, a dark circular mark like a tiny crater. where the outer glass separated in a clean cone. A star break is a center point with short cracks radiating out like legs. A combination break is both at once, a crater with legs, and it's the most common thing a highway rock leaves behind. A half moon is a bullseye that only formed on one side. And then there's the long crack, a single line wandering across the glass, usually born from a chip that nobody treated in time. Here's the honest sorting rule, and it's simpler than the industry makes it sound. A chip smaller than a quarter, with legs shorter than roughly an inch or so, sitting in the middle of the glass, is a strong candidate for repair, and usually a do-it-yourself repair at that. A crack up to about 3 inches can still be filled with a home kit if it's fresh and clean, and the boxes will tell you they handle far longer ones. But I'll be straight with you, the odds get worse with every inch. Professionals with better tools can chase cracks to 6 inches and sometimes beyond, and past that point, you're not repairing a windshield anymore. You're delaying a replacement and calling it a victory. Before you sort your chip into one of those families, actually inspect it and do it like a tech would. Get down at eye level with the glass, not looking down at it from above. Run a fingernail lightly across the surface. A repairable chip usually has a small pit you can feel, but the surrounding cracks should feel like nothing at all, because they live below the surface. Then go sit in the driver's seat and look at the damage from inside. From the inside, you can see how deep the cone goes, and whether any crack has a dark, silvery look to it, which means air is trapped along its whole length and it's fully separated. Check the legs of a star break in raking light, tilting your head until they catch, because the legs are always longer than they look head on, and the longest leg is the one that decides whether this is a repair or a replacement. 2 minutes of honest looking now saves you from injecting resin into a windshield that was already condemned. And some damage is simply off the table, no matter what any kit promises. If the crack reaches the edge of the glass, the windshield is done, because the edge is where the glass carries its highest stress. And an edge crack will keep walking no matter what you inject into it. If the damage punched through to the inner layer of glass, it's done. If you can catch a fingernail on the inside surface, that windshield is finished. If moisture and dirt have been sitting in an old chip for months, the repair will still help structurally, but it will never look clean, because you'd be sealing the grime inside. And if the chip sits directly in your line of sight over the steering wheel, most professionals will refuse to repair it, and they're right to. A finished repair always leaves a small optical scar, a faint distortion where the resin sits, and a distortion you have to look through every single mile is worse than the blemish you started with. Same story if the damage sits in the zone where a forward camera looks through the glass on a newer car. That area has to be optically clean, and we'll get to why that camera changed this whole subject in a big way. Now, the moment you spot a fresh chip, there's a piece of first aid that costs nothing and matters more than almost anything else. Put a piece of clear tape over it. That's it. Clean packing tape right over the chip. Here's why. The enemy of a good repair isn't the crack, it's what gets into the crack. Water, road film, washer fluid, wax, dust. The repair works by filling those empty spaces with resin, and resin cannot fill a space that's already full of dirty water. Tape keeps the wound clean until you can treat it. While you're at it, skip the car wash, go easy on the defroster, park in the shade if it's summer, and try not to slam doors, because slamming a door spikes the air pressure in the cabin, and that pressure pushes on the glass. Treat the car gently for a few days. You're not being precious. You're protecting a $15 fix from becoming impossible. So how does the fix actually work? The principle is beautiful in its simplicity. The chip is a network of tiny voids and cracks filled with air. Air reflects light, which is why you can see the damage at all. And air does nothing to hold the glass together. The repair replaces that air with a liquid acrylic resin that has almost the same optical density as glass, and then hardens it with ultraviolet light. Once cured, the resin becomes a solid plug welded into the damage. Light passes through it instead of bouncing off, so the mark mostly disappears from view. And mechanically, the cracked tips are no longer open points collecting stress. They're filled and bonded. A good repair gives the damaged spot back the vast majority of its original strength. And more importantly, it stops the growth. Done right, that chip is frozen in time for the life of the glass. A couple of details make the difference between a repair that lasts and one that fails in a season. The first is moisture. Resin bonds to glass the way glue bonds to wood, by gripping the surface at a microscopic level, and it cannot grip a wet surface. Water in the crack doesn't just cloud the repair, it physically blocks the bond, and a repair that never bonded is just a decoration waiting for winter. The second is viscosity, which is just the word for how thick the liquid is. A tight, hair-thin crack needs a thin, watery resin that can travel. A wide-open bullseye pit needs a thicker resin that will stay put and fill the volume. This is why professional rigs carry several resins, and why the Better Home kits pair a thin filler resin with a thicker pit sealer for the crater itself. 2 different jobs, 2 different liquids, 1 repair. The whole trick, whether it's a $15 kit or a professional rig, is getting the air out and the resin in. You cannot just smear resin on top and hope. The passages inside a chip are hair thin, and surface tension will not let a liquid wander in on its own. So every repair system, cheap or expensive, does the same dance. First, it pulls a vacuum over the damage to suck the air and any moisture out of the cracks. Then it reverses and applies pressure to drive the resin down into every branch of the break. Vacuum out, pressure in, sometimes cycled a few times. The professional injectors just do it with more control and better resin. Let's walk the do-it-yourself version, step by step, the way I'd want someone to walk me through it the first time. You buy a kit from any parts store for somewhere between $10 and $30. The well-known ones come from brands you already recognize, and inside the box you'll find a small bottle of resin, a plastic bridge or syringe assembly that sticks over the chip, some clear curing strips, and a razor blade. That's the whole arsenal. Pick your day. You want the glass dry, out of direct sun while you work, and ideally somewhere around room temperature. Cold glass makes the resin thick and lazy. Hot glass in the sun can start curing the resin before it's finished traveling. And a resin that hardens halfway into the crack is a repair you don't get to redo. If the car sat in the sun, park it in the shade and give the glass time to settle. If there's any chance moisture got into the chip, let the car sit somewhere dry for a day first, because trapped water will turn your repair cloudy and block the resin from bonding. Now prep the wound. Take a pin or the razor and gently flick away any loose flakes of glass sitting in the impact point. Gently is the entire instruction. You're removing crumbs, not excavating. Wipe the surface with a little rubbing alcohol on a clean cloth, let it dry completely, and don't drip alcohol into the chip itself. Mount the applicator over the damage, centered as precisely as you can manage. This is the step people rush, and it's the step that decides everything. Check it from inside the car. Your eye through the glass will tell you instantly if the tool is sitting off-center. Then follow your kit sequence. You'll draw the plunger or tighten the assembly to pull vacuum. And if you watch closely, you'll see tiny bubbles crawling out of the damage. That's the air leaving, and it's the best thing you'll see all day. Be patient here. Give the bubbles time to stop. Then reverse into the pressure stage and let the resin travel. You can help it along by tapping the glass lightly with a knuckle near the chip, which jiggles the resin into the finer branches. Watch the legs of a star break, darken, and vanish one by one as they fill. Do not muscle anything. Too much pressure on the tool can extend the very crack you're trying to save. Light, steady, patient. Let the resin do the work. One caution while we're here. Some kits and plenty of internet advice will tell you to drill a small hole into the chip first to open a path for the resin. Professionals do sometimes drill on specific breaks with a proper glass burr, a controlled touch, and years of feel for exactly when to stop. In an amateur hand, a drill is the fastest way ever invented to turn a repairable chip into a spreading crack. If your chip has an open impact point, and nearly all of them do, the resin already has its doorway. Skip the drill. The patient version of you does better work than the equipped version of you. When the damage looks full, you drop a curing strip over the spot, smooth it flat, and move the car into direct sunlight, because sunlight carries all the ultraviolet you need. That little strip isn't packaging, by the way. It has a job. The surface of the resin won't harden properly while it's exposed to open air, so the strip seals the air away and gives the ultraviolet light a smooth surface to cure against, which is what leaves the finished repair flat instead of dimpled. Give it the time the instructions ask for, usually somewhere between 15 minutes and an hour, and resist the urge to peak early, because a half-cured repair that gets disturbed stays cloudy forever. Then peel the strip, hold the razor flat against the glass, and shave the cured excess flush. Wipe it down and step back. If it went well, you'll see a faint ghost where the chip was, visible if you hunt for it, invisible at a glance, and structurally that spot is locked. Now for the honesty portion, because this channel doesn't sell miracles. A do-it-yourself repair is a structural fix first and a cosmetic fix second. Expect the mark to improve by most of the way, not all of the way. On a fresh, clean bullseye, you can get a result that's genuinely hard to find afterward. On an older combination break, you'll get a visible scar that no longer grows. And that's still a win, but know what you're buying. Also understand that resin repair is a one-shot deal. Once resin cures in the crack, no technician on earth can pull it back out. If a home repair goes wrong, badly filled, cloudy, bubbled, a professional usually cannot fix it afterward. So if the chip is large, complicated, or sitting somewhere expensive, think hard about whether you want your first attempt to happen on that particular windshield. Which brings us to the professional option, and here's where the math gets interesting. A professional chip repair in the United States generally runs somewhere between $60 and $150, with most jobs landing near $100. For that money, you get a technician with a machined injector that holds vacuum properly, resins in different viscosities matched to the type of break, a real ultraviolet lamp instead of waiting on the weather, and a set of hands that has done this a few thousand times. The job takes maybe 15 to 30 minutes. For a small fresh chip, the kit and the pro will land in nearly the same place. For a star brake with long legs, a combination brake, or any crack past a couple of inches, the professional's odds are simply better, and the price difference is one tank of gas. One more piece of shop math worth knowing. If your windshield collected more than one chip, and gravel roads hand them out in pairs, most shops charge the full rate for the first chip, and a much smaller add-on for each extra one done in the same visit, often somewhere between $20 and $40. So don't book them one at a time. Round up every wound on that glass and have them all treated in one appointment, because the expensive part of the visit is the visit itself. And if the glass does have to be replaced, know what a proper replacement looks like so you can recognize a sloppy one. The new windshield gets bonded to the body with a bead of urethane adhesive, and that adhesive needs time to cure before the car is safe to drive, because until it cures, the glass is just resting there. A good installer will tell you the safe drive-away time without being asked, usually an hour or a few depending on the adhesive and the weather. If someone hands you the keys 10 minutes after setting the glass and says you're good to go, that tells you everything about the rest of their work. And now, the insurance part I promised you, because this is the quirk almost nobody uses. If you carry comprehensive coverage, call your insurer before you pay anyone and ask one question. Do you waive the deductible for a chip repair? A large share of insurers will send a mobile tech to your driveway and pay for the entire repair. $0 out of your pocket. And here's the beautiful part. It's not generosity. A chip repair costs them $100. A replacement on a modern car can cost them 10 times that. Paying for your repair today is the cheapest claim they will ever settle, which makes this one of the only moments in the entire insurance relationship where their interest and yours point in exactly the same direction. And if you live in Florida, Kentucky, or South Carolina, state law goes further, and glass claims under comprehensive coverage come with no deductible at all, even for full replacement. Most drivers have no idea. They eat the cost of neglect out of pocket instead of making a phone call. Before we leave the how, 2 more things worth knowing, because they'll save somebody watching this real money. First, the cold morning trap. More chips turn into cracks on winter mornings than at any other time, and it's almost always the same story. Frozen windshield, drivers late, defroster on full blast, hot air hammering the inside of glass that's sitting at freezing. The inner layer expands, the outer layer doesn't, and the shear between them grabs the tip of that little chip and runs it to the edge of the glass before the coffee's cold. If you're carrying an unrepaired chip in winter, warm the glass slowly, low fan, moderate heat, and give it minutes instead of seconds. Second, the reason old chips repair poorly isn't age itself, it's contamination. Every week that chip sits open, it's drinking water and road film, and everything it drinks gets sealed into the repair forever. The difference between repairing a chip this weekend and repairing it in 3 months isn't subtle. It's the difference between a clean fix and a permanent gray freckle. Now let's talk about the part of this that actually explains the industry around you, because the economics of glass have gone strange, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. There is no money in a chip repair. $15 in materials, $100 with labor, done in half an hour. There is a great deal of money in a windshield replacement. A basic windshield on an older car runs a few $100s installed. But a windshield on a newer car is not just glass anymore. It's got an acoustic damping layer, embedded antennas, a rain sensor, a heated wiper park, a bracket holding a forward camera. And that camera is the eye for your automatic braking and your lane keeping. Replace the glass, and that camera has to be recalibrated with special targets and equipment. And that recalibration alone typically adds a few $100s, with the whole job on some models clearing well past $1,000. The windshield quietly stopped being a part and became a system, and every system that gets more complicated pulls the repair decision further out of your hands and deeper into specialist territory. So follow the incentives for a second. The glass shop makes a modest fee stopping your crack, or several $100s replacing your windshield, plus the calibration. Nobody's running a scam, and a genuinely dead windshield genuinely needs to go. But when the person assessing whether your chip is repairable earns 10 times more if the answer is no, you should at least know that before you nod along. And the deeper pattern is the one I keep finding under the hood of everything. The simple, cheap, owner-level fix doesn't advertise. There's no marketing budget behind a piece of clear tape and a $10 kit. The expensive path advertises constantly. So drivers who never learn the difference default to the expensive path, or worse, to doing nothing, which eventually becomes the most expensive path of all. This kind of knowledge used to be passed around in driveways and shop classes, and it faded, not because it stopped being true, but because nobody profits from teaching it. And that's really the thing underneath the thing. A chip repair is one of the last jobs on a modern car where an ordinary owner, with no tools beyond a razor blade and no skills beyond patience, can personally stop a small problem from becoming a big one. The car is increasingly a sealed box that talks to a dealer's computer, and here's this one repair sitting in the open where physics is on your side and the fix costs less than lunch. When you cure that resin and shave it flush and the little star is just gone, you get a specific kind of satisfaction that's getting rarer, the feeling of understanding your machine well enough to defend it. That feeling is worth cultivating. It changes how you own things. So here's what I want you to take away, in order. When you catch a rock, look at the damage that same day. Smaller than a quarter, away from the edge, away from your direct sight line, not through to the inner layer. That's a repair, and the clock is running. Tape over it immediately, keep it dry, keep it clean, and be gentle with the defroster and the doors. Call your insurance company and ask about free chip repair before you spend a dime. If they won't cover it, a fresh simple chip is a fair fight for a $10 to $30 kit, and an hour of patience worked in the shade on dry glass, with light hands and no hurry. A complicated break, a longer crack, or a windshield you can't afford to gamble with goes to a professional for $60 to $150, and that's still a bargain. And a crack at the edge, damage through the inner layer, or a scar in front of your eyes means the glass is done. And the honest move is to replace it and have any camera recalibrated, because that pane of glass is holding your roof up in a rollover and backing up the passenger airbag when it fires. It earned the respect. Picture the version of you 6 months from now. Rock hits the glass on a Tuesday. Instead of the slow dread of watching a crack creep another inch every cold morning, you've got tape on it by Tuesday night, resin in it by Saturday, and by Sunday, you have to lean in close to even find the spot. Same rock, same windshield, completely different outcome. And the entire difference was knowing what you now know. Tell me in the comments below about the worst windshield crack you ever drove behind, how it started, how far it traveled, and what it finally cost you. And tell me what part of the country your roads are in, because I know the gravel truck situation is not distributed fairly across this land. I read every single one of those comments, and honestly, the stories down there are half the reason I keep making these. If this saved you the price of a windshield, subscribing costs you nothing, and it means you won't miss what's coming next. Because next time we're finally opening up one I've been promising for a long while. The transmission fluid your car's maker swears is filled for life, sealed in, never needs changing. We're going to look at what lifetime actually means in that sentence, whose lifetime they're measuring, and what the fluid looks like when it comes out of a transmission that believed the marketing. I'll tell you this much now. The word lifetime is doing some very heavy lifting. Until then, keep a roll of clear tape in the glove box, stay a few extra lengths behind anything hauling gravel, and remember that the cheapest repair on your whole car is the one you do this week instead of next month. See you in the next one.